What are the ways to come to Portugal besides Golden Visa? Do you think Airbnb and booking reservations count anymore? And there's a deadline for people to apply, right? I know this because I missed it. Will they still pay tax in the US?
Dividends and interests, they are exempted in Portugal.
100%.
100%. And whenever you do this request, you don't need to prove anything. So of course, it's something that you should take advantage of.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today it's another video. We have invited one of the lawyers we work the most with our clients, Natasha, here with me.
Hi Mia, how are you?
Good, how are you? Welcome back.
Thank you.
And today we want to talk about different ways to come to Portugal, and also I want to compare or ask you some questions regarding D7 visa and the Digital Nomad Visa, because a lot of our clients have a lot of questions about this too, because before it used to be D7 and then there's a Digital Nomad. So what about the requirements of financial income, this and that? Hi, I am Mia, the founder of Mall Portugal, a property advisory company that helps you buy and rent property in Portugal like a local. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That will really help us out to push out videos like this every week. Tell us a little bit, what are the ways to come to Portugal besides Golden Visa?
Okay, so besides the Golden Visa, when someone can enter in Portugal, for example, with the Schengen visa, we always have the possibility to skip the visa part and start the process right away in Portugal. To have access to a residence permit, we always need to have like a link to working in Portugal or to study here, to incorporate a company and set up a business in Portugal. And we also have the possibility of the remote work, that it's the new
Digital Nomad Visa.
Exactly. So, but whenever this process starts at the country of origin of the applicants, this starts by getting a visa in the Portuguese consulate. This is a process that, despite if it's a D7 or a Nomad visa, it takes more or less 60 days. And after the process is approved and the visa is approved, the person can come to Portugal and continue this process in Portugal. So basically, it's like changing the visa to a permit that will allow then this person to live in Portugal like regularly.
Yeah. And so there are a couple of ways that people can apply for different visas and get the residence permit once they're here, right? But if we just compare D7 visa and Digital Nomad Visa, because before Digital Nomad Visa rolled out, D7 visa was the main visa route that people apply if they are digital nomads, if they're retirees, or if they simply want to relocate to Portugal. But what I am confused is, it used to be called passive income visa, no? Or it's still called passive income visa. I think it was designed for retirees to have people who have pension, dividends, or rental income.
Yes.
And then later on, it's sort of switched to the old Digital Nomad Visa. A lot of digital nomads start to applying via D7. And now there's a Digital Nomad Visa. So can you please tell me a little bit, what is the main difference between these two?
Okay, so as you were saying, it's completely correct that the D7 visa is intended for retirees or people that can live under their own income. So, but we are talking all the time about passive income.
Okay.
So we are talking about rental income, we are talking about dividends or income that it's received by any other financial instrument. And whenever we are talking about the D7, and although some Portuguese consulates already approved based on Nomad Visa, like someone that would submit the documents proving that they can work remotely and they can work in Portugal. It's not correct. And I believe this is one of the reasons why this Nomad Visa was also launched.
Okay.
So for the D7, the main difference from the D7 and the Nomad Visa, first of all, is because the Nomad Visa is really intended for people that want to work remotely, that they still want to work for the company that is based outside of Portugal, but they would do the work in Portugal while in Portugal. And the D7, it's for people that are retired, people that can
still
live.
The passive income.
Exactly.
Okay.
Still the passive income. And the main difference is also regarding the means of subsistence from one visa to the other. While in the D7, someone needs to prove that earns at least the minimum salary in Portugal, which is 760 euros for now, monthly. In the Nomad Visa, it needs to be proven that that person earns at least 3,040 euros. So it's a big difference, of course, but we understand that normally most of the people that are nomads, digital nomads, they are still they are receiving this type of income, so they can easily apply for this type of visa.
So do you see a trend, or do you think it's possible, since now the Portuguese government has rolled out this digital nomad visa, and the D7 will be more not strict but accurate to what it was designed for?
Yes, absolutely. So I really think that according to what is going on with already some Portuguese consulates, all the others that were approving D7 based on digital nomad visa, they will stop doing it because the accurate way to do it is with the nomad visa.
So they really want to differentiate this too, which I think it makes sense because people come here for different purposes, right? And digital nomad visa, I think they also has two categories. Is for, I don't know what's that called, is for one is for 1 year, the other is you can extend and get a residency permit.
Yes, correct. So you have two ways. One is a temporary stay for people that intend to be here but not more than 1 year.
Okay.
So they will have a visa that is valid for 1 year and they can stay here, but they will never have a residence permit based on that. Although, of course, if the situation changes, there's always a possibility to request that.
But they cannot extend, right? They cannot renew.
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And you also have the residency visa that is based on the fact of that the person can submit evidence that has a contract or it's a self-employee and comes to Portugal, and this person, the applicant, will have an appointment in our immigration office to ask for the permit to live here.
Okay. What are the main requirements difference between the temporary one and the long-term one? I know there's accommodation, you don't need it, right, for the temporary one?
Correct. So the accommodation, and also whenever you are living in Portugal, you will all the time need to prove that you have a health insurance or that you are registered in the national health system with a number to go to a public hospital. Yes, correct. So this would be the main difference in terms of the documents that you need to prove the nomad visa situation. They will be asked for one situation or the other.
And just extend the topic a little bit, because we accept a lot of clients for golden visa, right? And also for D7 visa and digital nomad visa. The only difference we see compare these different ways is the D7 and digital nomad visa, they will become tax residents in Portugal. A lot of people were not aware of this because once you are in the country for more than 6 months, automatically you become tax resident. This is correct?
Yeah, it's not something that is completely automatic. So there should be a contact between immigration office and the tax authority, but it's not happening at the moment.
Not yet.
So yeah, not yet. So what happens is that whenever someone has a residence permit, this should be requested to the tax authority to change the status. Because as you were saying, by the book, if you spend more than 6 months in the country, or even if you don't spend 6 months, but you have here your primary house, you can be considered a tax resident in Portugal. And of course, these visas and consequently the residence permit has this implication, which is this person is a tax resident in Portugal. And this means that the worldwide income needs to be declared in Portugal, even if the taxes are not completely paid here because of the double tax treaties that are in force between Portugal and the other countries.
So basically, times like this, situation like this, the NHR comes in very handy, no?
Completely, yes. And some people get confused with the NHR, thinking that this is a residence permit, which is
we
not.
have a lot of questions like that. Exactly.
So, because the NHR is a tax benefit that is applicable to someone that is considered a tax resident in Portugal, and that was not considered a tax resident in the previous 5 years. So someone that comes to Portugal for the first time and has a residence permit, that then changes the status from non-resident for tax purposes to resident, can apply for this tax benefit. It's a tax benefit that is it runs for 10 years. It's a period that cannot be extended. And during this period, most of the foreign source of income that is passive, like dividends and interest, they are exempted in Portugal.
100%.
100%. And of course, that it always needs to be checked, the double tax treaty, if we are talking about a specific country or not. And if we can really frame that income, this is also, it's always an analysis that is important to be done. But it's 100% exemption in Portugal of this type of income. And in Portuguese source of income, you may have some benefits because our taxes goes from up to 40%, 48%. So what we have here is that there may be a tax benefit for people that are doing a high qualified activity in Portugal. It's an applicable tax rate that is flat of 20%. It's a
maximum
huge difference. It's 20% flat rate. And for example, for pensions, we are talking about 10%. So of course, it's something that you should take advantage of.
It's very, very attractive, I have to say. And there's a deadline, sort of a window for people to apply, right? I know this because I missed it.
Oh,
because when I got to Portugal over 6 years ago, I wasn't aware of this. I was just like enjoying my life. And only later on I found out, oh, there's a program called NHR. Is it difficult to apply? And what is the window since they get the residency permit to apply this?
So whenever someone gets the residence permit, it's important to change the tax address at the tax authority. This can be done online or at the local tax authority, and you can apply for the NHR right away. And the deadline is 31 of March of the following year in which you become tax resident. So if you change your tax address to Portugal in September this year, you have until next year, the end of March, to do these requests.
Okay. And is it difficult to show that you are this qualified person in certain area, for example, scientist, or is the bar very high?
Whenever you do this request, you don't need to prove anything. So someone that doesn't have like a degree to be, for example, an IT, that is not related to IT, for example, but still has passive income from abroad, they can still apply for the NHR. So you don't need to be qualified to do it. And you don't need to prove anything in advance. The only thing is that whenever you are submitting an annual tax return based on that, and if you are asking for this tax benefit of the 20% or the 10%, you all the time need to understand that the tax authority may ask evidence of this.
Like supporting documents, right?
Exactly.
Okay. I would say NHR combined with any of this kind of visa, it's extremely attractive because you will get a lot of tax benefit, at least for 10 years straight.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about some general ideas about NHR, D7 Digital Nomad Visa, tax benefits. I'm going to throw something more specific, like scenario, but disclaimer, this is case by case. I just want to get a general idea. For example, most of our clients are US, they're Americans. So their question is, if they get this NHR, will they still pay tax in the US?
So, of course, the tax authority and the tax law in the US is nothing compared to the Portuguese one. So we always need to look at the double tax treaty in force between Portugal and the US and to see if, according to that double tax treaty, the country that has the right to tax is the country of residence, like Portugal, or if the country of origin of the funds, which is the United States. So what happens most is that the double tax treaty will say that both countries may tax. So the United States will all the time tax this income, sometimes with a certain limit. But on the Portuguese side, you will have an exemption, or whenever you don't have an exemption, you will always have credit note. So that's an important thing also to analyze case by case to see if this income is exempted or what would be the credit that you will have in Portugal.
When do you recommend, for example, in the future, we can tell our clients when should they start looking into the tax structure for the future when they apply for the visa, for example, if they want to come for D7 visa, and then when is the window to check the tax, when is the window to apply for NHR?
I would say that it's important to bear this in mind right away. Whenever you want to apply for the visa and you take this decision, it's important to have this sorted out, because it's important to understand if you want, for example, to incorporate a company. It's quite common that people want to incorporate a company to invoice some of the work that they perform in Portugal, or if they will do it as self-employed people. So I would say it's very important to do this tax analysis at the beginning of the process.
So among all the visas that people can apply to come to Portugal, what are the general requirements? For example, if I were someone who's from a certain country, what should I keep in mind what are the steps or the necessary documents that I need to prepare?
Okay, so I would say the first steps are getting a Portuguese taxpayer number, which is like basically a number of registration in the tax authority, and open a bank account in Portugal. For the NIF number, it's important to hence that someone that is non-resident for tax purposes in Portugal needs to point out a tax representative, which would be like basically the person that keeps the point of contact between tax authority and the taxpayer. Aside from this, which is really step number one for all the visa types, is it's also important to have an accommodation in Portugal, either a property that is bought or a property that is rented, and also to have enough means of subsistence. So it depends on the visa type, but at least this should cover at least the minimum salary in Portugal, which is 760 euros.
Okay.
So aside from this, you also need to bear in mind that it's important to have a non-criminal record certificate issued in the last 3 months. This is very important because it all the time needs to be updated.
Yes, and this is a very annoying part, right? For people to apply, constantly keep up. Yes,
it's a lot of bureaucracy, but it needs to be. And whenever someone wants to relocate to Portugal with family members, it's also important to have marriage certificates, also up-to-date one, and birth certificates of the children to prove the family ties.
Okay. And regarding the accommodation, proof of accommodation, do you think Airbnb and booking reservations count anymore?
I would say they used to count if the person has at least 4 months in advance. But the strongest way to do it is with a rental contract.
The long term.
Yeah, correct.
Or purchase some property, right?
Exactly.
I believe the Portuguese consulate, they just want to see how committed you are about moving to Portugal. That's why there is a financial requirement. That's why there is a proof of accommodation as well.
Yes, correct. And that is basically, it's safe for someone to come here because they have that financial part, but they also have a property in Portugal where they will live. So yes, it's important to have all of that sorted out before the visa application.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for your help and your support. We really love to bring this kind of professional answers into our channel so we can share with everyone that watches our videos. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like content like this, please let us know in the comment below, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.